Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I am Muneeb Hamid with the news of this hour. Let's begin with the headlines first. Azerbaijan says it has captured 2 districts previously held by Armenia during the ongoing fierce fighting over the NagornoKarabakh region. Azerbaijan's envoy to Pakistan, Ali Alizada, said several strategic heights at Murov mountain have also been liberated from Armenia's illegal occupation. At least 23 people have reportedly been killed and several others wounded in the heaviest clashes between the two countries since 2016. The chairman of the High Council for National Reconciliation of Afghanistan, Abdullah, has arrived in Pakistan on a 3-day visit. Abdullah met Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi. Prime Minister Imran Khan's special advisor on trade, Abdul Razak Dawood, received the Afghan dignitary at the airport in Islamabad. Another meeting of the contact groups of the Taliban and Kabul has ended inconclusively at the intra-Afghan talks in Doha. The two sides have been trying to reach a consensus on the mechanism of the peace talks. In Kabul's negotiator Nadir Nadri and Taliban spokesperson Dr. Naeem say such meetings will continue until a final agreement is reached. The new coronavirus has claimed more than 997,000 lives, infecting over 33 million people across the globe. India's coronavirus cases tally has topped 6 million after it reported over 82,000 new infections in the past 24 hours. The Indian Health Ministry said 1,039 COVID-19 patients died overnight, taking the count to over 95,000. In Pakistan, 9 more people have lost their lives to the virus since yesterday, bringing the death toll to 6,466. News coming in detail after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now let's have the news in detail. Azerbaijan says it has captured the Fuzuli and Jabrail districts previously held by Armenia during the ongoing fierce fighting between the two countries. At least 23 people have reportedly been killed and several others wounded. Azerbaijan's ambassador to Pakistan, Ali Alizada, said several strategic heights at Murov mountain have also been liberated from Armenia's illegal occupation. Azerbaijan declared a state of war in some of its cities yesterday following heavy clashes with Armenian forces in the disputed Nagorno-Karabakh region. Both sides have reported a total of 23 military and civilian casualties in the worst escalation since 2016. Azerbaijan President Ilham Aliyev says the blood of the martyrs will be avenged.
As a result of the enemy shelling, there are casualties among the civilian population and military personnel. May Allah rest the souls of our martyrs. Their blood will not remain on the ground. The Azerbaijani army is currently shelling, striking the enemy's military positions, and as a result of these attacks, most of the enemy's military equipment was destroyed. This is another manifestation of Armenian fascism.
Earlier, Armenia declared martial law after claiming to have destroyed several Azerbaijani helicopters and tanks. Now moving on, international community has called for an end to the ongoing fighting between Armenia and Azerbaijan. The clashes between the two former Soviet republics are the latest flare-up of long-running conflicts over a breakaway region of Nagorno-Karabakh.
UN Secretary General has called on both sides to stop fighting and return to the negotiating table. US President Donald Trump says Washington will seek to end the violence between the two neighbors. Kremlin said Russia's President Vladimir Putin has expressed serious concern over the escalation of the situation. Pakistan and Turkey said they fully support Azerbaijan's right to self-defense and its position on Nagorno-Karabakh region. Meanwhile, Iran and the European Union have too called on the two sides to de-escalate and settle their differences through dialogue.
Now, the chairman of High Council for National Reconciliation of Afghanistan, Abdullah, has arrived in Pakistan on a 3-day visit. Prime Minister Imran Khan's special advisor on trade, Abdul Razak Dawood, received the Afghan dignitary at the airport in Islamabad. Abdullah has called on Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi and will meet top leadership of Pakistan in his 3-day visit. In a tweet, Abdullah said he will exchange views on Afghanistan peace process and bilateral relations during the visit. Earlier, Pakistan's Foreign Office said the visit will give an opportunity for wide-ranging exchange of views on the Afghan peace process. It said Pakistan attaches great importance to its fraternal ties with Afghanistan and fully supports all efforts for peace. Yesterday, in an op-ed published in the Washington Post, Prime Minister Imran Khan urged all stakeholders to stay patient and committed to the process. Another meeting of the contact group of the Taliban in Kabul has ended inconclusively at the intra-Afghan talks in Doha. The two sides have been trying to reach a consensus on the mechanism of peace talks in Kabul. Now, Kabul's negotiator Nadir Nadri and Taliban spokesperson Dr. Naeem say such meetings will continue until a final agreement is reached. The contact group of the two sides have met multiple times since the peace talks started in September 20th. Earlier, the Taliban blamed Kabul's hardline stance for the delay in agreeing on a mechanism for the core negotiations. Now, in Belarus, thousands of demonstrators took to the streets in Minsk for a 7th straight weekend, calling for President Alexander Lukashenko to quit. Security forces detained over 50 protesters and fired stun grenades and tear gas to disperse the crowds. A large number of women participated in the protest, with one group chanting in favor of opposition politician Sviatlana Tishkanushkaya. Unrest in Belarus was triggered by last month's disputed presidential election, which believed to have been rigged in favor of Lukashenko. But the president denies any wrongdoing. Earlier, Belarus accused Western nations of attempting to sow chaos and anarchy in the country. Moving on, Saudi Arabia's Foreign Minister Prince Faisal bin Farhan has discussed regional issues with U.S. Secretary of State Mike Pompeo. The Kingdom state media said both exchanged views on the strategic partnership between the two countries in a phone call. It said they also discussed joint coordination on dealing with regional and international developments. They reviewed the efforts of the G20 countries, of which the Kingdom holds this year's presidency. Earlier, Pompeo held a phone call with his Egyptian counterpart Sameh Shoukry to discuss the Libyan crisis as well as issues of common interest. Cairo state media quoted Shoukry as saying that Egypt is communicating with Libyan parties to implement the ceasefire. Meanwhile, the Saudi foreign minister held a phone call with his Eritrean counterpart Osman Saleh Mohammed. Egypt's President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has warned against attempts to stoke instability in the country. Sisi's warning follows a recent spate of scattered and small-scale anti-government protests. At a ceremony in Cairo, Sisi said some people are trying to take advantage of the tough measures his government has taken. It said they choose the hard conditions to cause doubts among the Egyptians over the government's reforms. Dozens of people took part in rare protests in recent days in several villages in Egypt. On Saturday, a man was killed in clashes between protesters and police in a village south of Cairo. French President Emmanuel Macron says he will not give up an initiative to save Lebanon from collapse. At a press conference, Macron said he was ashamed of Lebanon's leaders and will ramp up pressure on them to change course. The president said he is giving the rulers another 6 weeks to implement a French roadmap to bring the country back from chaos. As for now, he said there is no chance of imposing sanctions on Lebanon's leaders. Macron said he did not think that imposing sanctions will be useful at this stage. On Saturday, Lebanon's Prime Minister-designate Mustafa Adib resigned after failing to make a non-partisan cabinet. Meanwhile, Mali's Foreign Minister Mokhtar Ouane has been named as the country's interim Prime Minister. The move is likely to trigger the lifting of sanctions from the West African bloc, ECOWAS, in the aftermath of the military coup last month. Besides being the foreign minister, Wine has also served as Mali's ambassador to the United Nations from 1995 to 2002. His appointment comes 2 days after retired Colonel Ba Ndao was sworn in as the country's president, and coup leader Colonel Assimi Goita as vice president. The men will be tasked with overseeing an 18-month transition back to civilian rule. Now, Jordan's King Abdullah has dissolved the country's parliament, paving the way for an election in November. Under constitutional rules, the government must resign within a week. The king issued a royal decree ordering the dissolution of the parliament effective on Sunday. The assembly comprises 130 lawmakers, mainly pro-government tribal officials, businessmen and ex-security officials. In July, Jordan's Electoral Commission set 10th of November as the date for parliamentary elections. This comes after the monarch called for countrywide polls to be held at the end of the parliament's 4-year term. Now, 11 people have been shot dead in a bar in the central Mexican state of Guanajuato. The Attorney General's office said bodies of 7 men and 4 women were found in the Jaral del Progreso city's bar. Authorities say another woman was found with gunshot injuries. Police said Guanajuato is ravaged by a turf war between the local Santa Rosa de Lima gang and the powerful Jalisco New Generation cartel. In July, gunmen killed 24 people at a drug rehabilitation center in the Guanajuato, marking one of the worst mass slayings. President Andrés Manuel López Obrador has pledged to reduce record levels of violence. Now, the new coronavirus has claimed more than 997,000 lives, infecting over 33 million across the globe. India's cases tally has topped 6 million after it reported over 82,000 new infections in the past 24 hours. The Indian Health Ministry said 1,039 COVID-19 patients died overnight, taking the count to over 95,000. Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern said travel between New Zealand and some states of Australia is possible before the end of the year. This comes as the virus has been largely contained in New Zealand and cases continue to decline in Australian regions. Brazil has reported 335 deaths from the virus overnight, taking the toll to over 141,000. Meanwhile, mainland China has reported 21 new COVID-19 cases, saying all of them were imported. While in Pakistan, 9 people have died from COVID-19 overnight, taking the toll to 6,466. The Health Ministry said 566 people tested positive over the past 24 hours, raising the number of active cases to over 8,000. The ministry said with a 95% recovery rate, over 296,000 patients have recovered from the disease. Sindh is still the most hit province with more than 136,000 infections, while over 99,000 cases have been reported in Punjab so far. The National Command and Operations Centre said 735 hospitals are providing facilities to nearly 700 patients admitted across the country. Pakistan has reminded the world that Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi ignored Kashmir and other major global issues in his UN address. Pakistan's envoy to the UN, Munir Akram, said Modi played up trivial issues in his speech, ignoring those the world is interested in. Akram said Modi's speech was divorced from reality of an intolerant, divided, brutal and economically failing India locked in disputes with its neighbours. The Indian leader, addressing the 75th UN General Assembly, demanded a permanent seat in the United Nations Security Council but ignored key global issues. Pakistan opposed the demand, saying there is no place for a fascist state in a global decision-making body. On August 5th last year, India illegally merged the occupied Jammu and Kashmir valleys, with the union forcing millions of Kashmiris to live under a siege. More news coming up in this bulletin after a short break. Stay tuned. Welcome back. Now, moving on with the news stories. US President Donald Trump has rejected his tax report published in the New York Times, terming it as totally fake news. Addressing a press conference, President Trump said he paid his tax and soon people will see his tax returns. He said they've been under audit for a long time. The New York Times earlier reported that the U.S. president paid only $750 in federal income taxes in 2016 and 17. The report said in 2017, Trump paid $145,400 taxes in India and nearly $157,000 in the Philippines. The report further claims Donald Trump paid no income taxes in 10 of the last 15 years. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, in a statement, said the latest revelations about Trump's taxes showed his disdain for America's working families. A U.S. judge has blocked President Donald Trump's orders to ban download of Chinese short video app TikTok. Nominated by President Trump last year, District Judge Carl Nichols issued a temporary injunction following TikTok's request. The judge, however, abstained from blocking other Commerce Department restrictions that are set to make TikTok unusable in the U.S. During hearing, a TikTok's lawyer said in the wake of ongoing negotiations, the ban was unprecedented and irrational. TikTok argued that the restrictions were politically motivated amid the U.S. and China tensions. Meanwhile, another judge in California has blocked a similar order from taking effect on WeChat, a Chinese messaging app. Now, Saudi Arabia says the G20 Leaders Summit will be held virtually on November 21st and 22nd. In a statement, the G20 presidency said the summit will be chaired by Saudi Arabia's King Salman. The statement said the G20 is leading the fight against the global pandemic, taking swift and unprecedented actions to protect lives. It said the meeting will lay foundations for a better future to save lives in the future. The G20 has contributed over $21 billion to support the production, distribution and access to diagnostics, therapeutics and vaccines. It has also injected $11 trillion to safeguard the global economy and launched a debt suspension initiative for least developed countries. Now, a wind-driven wildfire has erupted in northern California's Napa Valley, rapidly spreading across over 1,000 acres. Authorities said the fire has caused evacuation of hundreds of homes and hospitals in the surroundings. The fire broke out before dawn near Calistoga, spreading towards the adjacent towns of Deer Park and St. Helena. The California Fire Department said the firefighters are struggling to put out the blazing flames. The power to transmission lines in 16 counties across northern and central California has also been suspended. The authorities say they are investigating the cause of fire. There are no immediate reports of casualties. Now, markets in Asia-Pacific are trading mixed as investors ignore the global surge of COVID-19 and focused on local developments. The Hang Seng Index in Hong Kong rose close to 1%, with shares of Xiaomi rising more than 2%. Mainland Chinese stocks lagged, with both the Shanghai Composite and the Shenzhen Component shedding close to 0.5%. Elsewhere in Japan, the Nikkei 225 and the Topix Index added over 1%. South Korea's Kospi climbed nearly 1.5%. In Australia, the S&P ASX 200 fell below the flat line. Overall, the MSCI Asia ex-Japan Index rose more than 0.5%. Qatar Airways says it has received a $1.95 billion stimulus package from the government after facing grinding halt to flights due to the pandemic. In a statement, the airline said it got the package after annual losses exceeded 50% of share capital. It said 2020 had been one of its most difficult years ever, with losses widening from previous year's $1.2 billion. The airline has already cut jobs and delayed new aircraft deliveries. The company has been facing a ban from the airspace of neighboring countries due to regional political dispute. Now let's have a look at the weather updates across the globe. Well, that is all for now. For the latest update, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.